got it. Okay, it's on now. So we have two ways of finding the size of the circle. The first one is the circumference, and the second one is the area. The circumference of a circle is nothing but the motion around the circle, the total motion around the circle, and it's determined by this formula, which says, I just got Nevaeh's quiz right now. So if she's here, she should just wait until the end of the class to be on my attendance, okay? So is that when you are finding the perimeter of a rectangle, it's about your total motion around that rectangle, which means this side plus this side plus this side plus this side. Okay, and if it's about a triangle, it's just the perimeter going to be the distance from this side. The sum of these three sides of the triangle will definitely become the perimeter. So here is the same thing here we're going to do. It's about moving around exactly, moving exactly around the circle. And the circumference is represented by okay, she says she has to take a laptop somewhere. So here, circumference will be represented by C, and the formula for circumference is nothing but pi times D. D represents the diameter. Oh, sorry, I need to project it for my wonderful classmates here. Just give me additional 1 minute to be able to project this. So sorry, I didn't know that. I just put it on, but I forgot to just make sure it works. So sorry. Okay, come on. Okay, it's projected now, so everybody will see here from here. Then, pi times D. D here represents the diameter. And as we all know, diameter is twice the radius. So instead of writing pi times D, you can as well write C equals to pi times 2D, 2R, or 2 pi R. 2 pi, here 2 pi equals to D, the diameter, because to have a diameter, you need to move, you need to extend the radius once again, So if this is radius, this is radius, how many times we have R here? 2 times. That's why we said 2 pi R. And in terms of the area, it's just the two-dimensional space inside the shape. So here, the formula for area going to be area equals to pi times R squared. And the unit of circumference is always in the specific unit without any further addition. But for area, the unit is always in unit squared, okay? It's always in unit squared. If it's in meter, it's gonna be meter squared. If it's in feet, it's gonna be feet squared. And these are some beautiful things about pi. So the symbol pi is a Greek letter. That's in English, we write it as pi. And it stands for an irrational number. So whenever you see pi, think about irrational number. And what is an irrational number? It's just a number that cannot be written as a fraction. That cannot be written as a fraction. Which means in decimal form, it's never ending. It will never end. So it never ends or repeats. We all know rational and irrational numbers. Rational numbers are numbers that repeats and that sometimes ends, or that could be written in fraction form. An irrational number, the numbers are numbers that cannot be written in fraction form, or they do not end, or they do not repeat themselves. So here, the shortest way to write fraction, or pi is always 3.14. Even though we have, this is just an approximation. That's why they said approximately. So it means we ended it somewhere because it's still on. We still have thousands, millions, trillions of numbers behind it. It will never end. And some powerful mathematicians or some people that have time to study pi, it takes the whole day of their life to study it. They'll just be saying, okay, I want to find the next 100 millions number behind pi. And they can spend the next 10 years doing that and doing research about that. And sometimes it's also good, sometimes people usually use 22/7 to value pi because pi is 314. So if I open Desmos calculator, come on. Not this Desmos. Scientific calculator, I'm sorry. You're gonna see what I'm talking about. Okay. So this is pi, the young guy. As you can see, it says your answers show up on this side, and since it means here this is the only digits this calculator could accommodate, that's 9 digits after the decimal point. It's still unending. And sometimes if I also put 22/7, say it gives me almost the same value of pi. We have 3.1, 2857143. Even though it's not the same, that's why they said approximately. So the approximation means almost the same, but it can never be the same. So that's why they said it's pretty close, which is pretty close to pi, but that cannot never be exactly as pi. So we're gonna use those small knowledge we have today to calculate some things here. Here, find the circumference of the following circle. We know the formula for circumference is 2 pi times r. So C gonna be 2 times pi times r. What is r here? What is the radius here, Tyler? What is the radius? 4. The radius here is 4. So here you replace this by 4. And then what is 2 times 4? So here in terms of pi, it's going to be 8 pi meter. And the decimal approximation, what will it be? For the decimal approximation, just take 8 times 3, 1. And we just decided to take pi as 3.14. So you're going to say 8 times. Instead of pi, put 3.14. And what is 8 times 3.14? Can you help us, Tyler? 8 times 3.14. Okay, that's going to be 25.12 what? Is there any other digit behind? Okay, 25.12 meters. So sometime in your test, they might just ask you to find the circumference of a circle in terms of pi. If it's in terms of pi, just make sure you find the radius, you multiply by 2, and you put pi by the side. But if they said in decimal form, just find the radius and then replace pi by 3.14 and then do your calculation, okay? Then here, we're gonna find the circumference. And since I said the circumference is always in unit square, So the area rather, the area is in unit squared. So area gonna be pi r squared. And here we know r to be what? The r here is still 4, so you're gonna take 4, but make sure you square it. And what is 4 squared? Okay, 4 squared is 4 times 4. So that would be 16 pi. And you know, when you're looking for area, the unit has to be, you know, in unit squared, okay? Since r is squared, so that means m is also squared. R squared means r times r. Then if the r here is 4 meters, this represents the first r, and then the second r gonna be 4 meters again. So 4 times 4 is what? 16. M times m is what? M squared. That's why we have 16 pi m squared. And in decimal form, you're just gonna do 16 times 3.14. And what does that give us? 50.24. And what would be the units? Oh, okay, beautiful, m squared. Then the last problem here, what should be the circumference here? Can someone give me the formula? Can someone help me do the calculate the circumference and the area without my intervention? Okay, Sue, welcome. How have you been? Please, what's the formula for circumference again? Here, what do we have? This time around, we only have the diameter. So which is what? D. The diameter is the distance, you know, a chord that passes through the center. So it takes the whole of the half of the cycle, okay, to be able to attain the diameter. So we know we have two formulas for circumference. At the beginning, we said it's either pi times diameter or 2 pi r. When you know the diameter, just multiply by pi. But when you know the radius, multiply the radius by 2 and then multiply by pi. Simple as that. So here, since we know the diameter, we don't have to stress ourselves, just take pi times diameter. And the diameter here is 15.4. So here C has to be, you know, 15 comes out, 15.4 comes in front of pi. So you have 15.4 pi. And then it's in miles, so mile. And in approximation, the approximation in decimal form, it's going to be 15.4 times 3.14. And what is 15.4 times 3.14? Okay, so 48.38 mile. And in terms of the area, we know area does not work with diameter, so area is always pi r squared. So we need to find r here. So how do we find r? We know to get diameter, you need twice the value of the radius, okay? So here you're gonna say diameter equals to 2 times r. Since our diameter is 15, here it's 15.4, that will be times 2r. Then dividing both sides by 2. 15.4 divided by 2 is what? Okay, 7.7 then is the radius. Okay, then you go back and fix it. Here our radius is 7.7. Make sure you square it. I'm putting it into circle so that you can see that it, you know, the square only applies to that. Then what is 7 times 7.7 times 7.7? Okay, 7.7 square means 7.7 times 7.7. So it's gonna be 15 point, oh, you said 59? 59.29. This space is too small, so I'm gonna just write it somewhere up there. 59.29 pi. And then what should be the unit? That's miles. Miles what? Since R is squared, so that means the mile has to be as well squared, okay? Because here we have radius times radius, and the first radius is 7.7 mile times the second radius, which is 7.7 miles. So 7.7 times 7.7 gives us 59.29, and then miles times miles is what? Miles squared. Then in the decimal approximation gonna be 59.29 times our approximation value of pi is 3.1. So if you do this, this gives us what? 186.27. Okay, miles squared. So here you need to take two things home. The formula of the circumference of a circle, we have two of them. If the diameter is known, just multiply the diameter by pi. If they ask you for the approximation, know that the value of pi is approximately 3.14, but not exactly 3.14. You can be tolerated if you use 3.14 to calculate the value of pi, but the value is bigger than that, it's longer than that, okay? And then another way to calculate to get the circumference is when the radius is given, just multiply the radius by 2 and then put pi by the side. And then if they ask you for the approximation, just multiply by 3.14. In terms of the area is just pi times r squared. R stands for radius. So if the radius is given, you multiply the radius by itself twice, and then you multiply it by pi. You put pi by the side. And the unit for area is always in unit squared. If your radius is, your radius is in meters, so the area has to be in meters squared. If your radius is in feet, so your area has to be in feet squared. So unit squared, make sure you always put the square at the unit. Like in this case here, where we had 16 pi meter squared. Or down here when Tyler said 59.29 pi miles squared, okay? So we're gonna quickly go to the homework and then see what we can do there and then call it a day. Then tomorrow, classmates, make sure you get prepared. We're gonna have our 6th quiz. It's gonna be simple, but it needs a bit of serenity to be able to understand what's going on there. So tomorrow is another quiz day, and I think it's gonna be a pretty day to work together.